Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nick Canino, the guy in charge of the FilmBrony podcast. And as always, welcome to episode 64 of the FilmBrony podcast. And as always, I'm here with a guest of mine, the guy who created the podcast. So introduce yourself.
Well, it's been a long time, but better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. Again, life's been getting to me, and work and life has been getting to me, as well as I've been sick for 2 weeks, and that's why we haven't been doing a new episode. But I feel you guys. I feel like you guys were long overdue for an episode. Now here it is. Today's just going to be today's podcast. For today's podcast, we're going to go over our 7 worst and best films of the summer list, and then Søren and I will be reviewing the films that came out from late September through October. So hopefully you guys are in for a treat for this one. And yeah, before we begin, before we do our usual, let's go ahead and do what we usually do, which is the Blu-ray showcase.
All right. First up is a movie that Apple finally had the balls to release on Blu-ray, Coda.
And I'm getting that for Christmas, so.
Right. Eyes Without a Face.
Nice.
Flow.
Hey, John Wick, and hey, Taz. Welcome to the podcast. Flow was a great film. That's also on my Christmas list.
Hoop Dreams.
A wonderful documentary.
Naked.
The Mike Lee film, a brilliant one.
Naked Gun 2025.
That's also on my Christmas list. Love that film.
Night of the Living Dead, the OG.
Great film.
Perfect Days.
I feel bad for not reviewing it, especially given the fact that Neon really messed up the scheduling date with that one.
Ish. First worst person in the world now of this. Anyways,
yeah.
This Ray Harryhausen collection.
Nice.
Umberto D.
Nice.
And speaking of worst person in the world. And I have one more. And I have one more, but I'll save it until the actual list.
All right. So, okay. So, I have all these Blu-rays for me today. I might as well present them right now. So, here we go. One of my favorite movies of 2013, American Hustle.
Indeed.
This was sad thing is, this was the last great movie that David O. Russell did before he started to slip.
Yeah.
Next up, one of my favorite movies of 2014, Interstellar.
Pretty underrated Nolan flick.
Yeah, I say so. Next up, The Theory of Everything.
Great one. Eddie Redmayne deserved that Oscar.
He sure did. Next up, like Interstellar and The Theory of Everything, one of my favorite movies of 2014, Wild.
I still need to see that one. It's on my watch list.
It's a great film. Reese Witherspoon is perfect. Is fantastic in that film. Oh boy. Well, I'll definitely review that one when we do the next podcast. So hang on. So as the quote Samuel L. Jackson from Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts, folks.
Yeah.
Next up, another one of my favorites of 2014, The Imitation Game.
Great movie.
It is.
The thing is, I actually find myself confusing Theory of Everything and Imitation Game all the time.
Also, you may have noticed that the new. Before I continue, you guys may have noticed the background change for a bit. I'm doing this in the basement of my I'm doing this in the basement for this podcast. Usually I do it in my room, but since my mom is home for the next 2 weeks, due to her shoulder, due to what's been happening with her shoulder, I decided to just do it down here in the basement for this podcast. And there might be a possibility that the next podcast will also be down here in the basement. So just to Just to give you guys a heads up. Even if I hate this movie, guess what? It's not going to change anything. They can say whatever they want. It's still not going to change anything. Anyway, I know you found this movie overrated, Søren, but I really love this movie. It was one of my favorites of 2014, Selma. Next up, Kingsman: The Secret Service.
Great film. Sequels,
it is.
Sequel's just as good.
Yeah. The prequel, not so much. Next up, one of the funniest films of the last decade, Spy.
Great one.
It is. Next up, one of my favorite movies of 2015, and this actor really deserved to win Best Supporting Actor. Bridge of Spies.
Great film, but Sylvester Stallone should have won.
I wish I could agree with you right there, dude, but Mark Rylance deserved it. Sorry. Anyway, next up, another one of my favorite movies of 2017, The Big Sick.
It's a good one.
It is. Next, another one of my favorites of 2017, Detroit.
Pretty overlooked Catherine Bigelow flick.
Very overlooked. Very overlooked. Another one of my favorites of 2017, Blade Runner 2049.
That's in my top 3 that year.
Great. It is a great film. And then next up, another one of my favorites of 2017, and one of this director's best movies, Phantom Thread by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Great film.
It is. Next up, one of my favorite movies of 2018 and one of the most overlooked ones, Widows.
No, yeah, it's an overlooked one.
Mm-hmm. Next, and then continuing the tradition of 2019, one of my favorites of that year, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World.
Wish that was the last of the Dragon history, but no, they just had to remake it.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Toy Story 4, this would have been my favorite animated film of the year. But hey, runner-up is still great, regardless. And then another one of my favorites of 2019, Jordan Peele's Us.
Right.
I now have 3 Jordan Peele films in my collection, thank goodness. It's about time. And then one of my favorite movies of last year, A Different Man.
It's a decent film.
One battle after another. To answer your question, I really do think One Battle After Another is like one of the best movies I've seen this decade so far.
Yeah, indeed.
And yeah, Taz, I'm really excited for that too. I'm really excited for that film too next year. It's in my top 3.
Yeah.
All right. And I would show the other film, but you know what? It is in my honorable mentions for the summer list, so might as well show it. Materialist.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the Blu-ray collections, and now let's get to the worst and best films of the summer list. You got this is long. This has been long overdue, so we might as well do it. So. Now, Søren and I didn't really see a lot of bad movies, which is why we're narrowing our list down to 7 films. So and we didn't see a lot of bad movies from the summer, so that's why we're narrowing our list down, our picks down to 7s. So these are the 7 films that Søren and I either loved or hated from the summer. And here's a couple guidelines where we need to go over before we share our list. The number 1, I didn't see every film that came out this summer and that people either loved or hated. And number 2, these are just our personal picks for what we feel are the worst and best films that we saw this summer are. If you disagree with any of the choices, that's totally fine. Humor is subjective. and we all have opinions, and that's why there's also the comment section below. You could comment right down below on what your worst and best movies of the summer were. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's get to the dishonorable and honorable mentions. You go first.
My dishonorable mentions are Ballerina, Freak Air Friday, How to Train Your Dragon, Bad Guys 2, Long Distance, Life of Chuck, the Lilo and Stitch remake, and Honey, Don't Watch This Movie.
My only my 4 dishonorable mentions I have are Ron Howard's Eden, Karate Kid Legends, Megan 2.0, and the one that almost came close to being on the list, the Lilo and Stitch live-action remake.
As for my honorable mentions, I have Fantastic Four First Steps, Highest to Lowest, K-Pop Demon Hunters, Suck at Vector, F1, The New Avengers, Elio, M3gan 2.0, Rust, The Surfer, and 28 Years Later.
My honorable mentions are Final Destination Bloodlines, Jane Austen Wrecked My Life, Don't Let's Go to the Dots Tonight, The Fantastic Four First Steps, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, Superman, 28 Years Later, Materialist, Together, Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme, and finally, Bring Her Back.
All right, on to the top 7. My number 7 worst. Just stop it with these movies already. Jurassic World Rebirth.
That's also actually that's my number 6. But I'll mention that later when we get to it. So.
Got some magic that made the original a classic and the first couple sequels solid, and it's just replaced with soulless characters, barely anything happening, and whatever does happen isn't even interesting. And what even the effects mean nothing now. You know what you're doing with an empty shell of a franchise. It's just one of those instances where Universal spent so long wondering if they could that they forgot to think about whether they should. Hence the number 7 worst.
My number 7 worst, and it really breaks my heart that I have to put this particular director on this list, but this is probably my least favorite movie he's made so far. Number 7 is Ethan Coen's Honey, Don't. Oh, Ethan Coen, what the hell happened to you, dude? What the hell happened to you? This was the second film in his lesbian B-movie trilogy, with Drive-Away Dolls being the previous entry, and it's the worst one so far, in my opinion. Honey, Don't isn't just the worst movie put out by one of the Coen brothers, Ethan. It's also one of the laziest and most boring and inconsistent movies I've seen this entire year. This is one of those movies where you're left feeling bored, since nothing happens throughout the film, and even when stuff does happen, it either feels rushed or doesn't get resolved at all, to the point where it just becomes nothing more than just a complete waste of time. Yes, Margaret Qualley, Aubrey Plaza, and Chris Evans all give up very good performance, and it's got a great soundtrack and fantastic cinematography. Unfortunately, they're not enough to save this one. The story is just basically nothing more than just almost 90 minutes of almost nothing happening. The screenplay that Ethan Coen and his wife Trisha Cook wrote for the film was atrocious, especially with most of the characters feeling paper thin and one-dimensional, as well as the dialogue being nothing more than a clunky mess. The rest of the actors, including Charlie Day, Kristen Connolly, and Billy Eichner, all feel horribly wasted in this movie, since they're not given that much to do. The comedy felt forced and idiotic as hell. The mystery aspects are not that intriguing or interesting, especially when the reveals, spoilers by the way, but who cares? When the reveal of Aubrey Plaza's character, MG Falcone, despite being a police officer early on in the movie, did all this, made absolutely no sense. And the pacing, dear Lord, it is one of the worst I've seen this entire year. For a movie that's almost 90 minutes long, it's also sluggishly paced, especially with some scenes that dragged on and on and on, to the point where not only did it feel like 2.5 hours, but I actually almost fell asleep watching this. And that's one of the biggest crimes a movie could ever do. Nearly put me to sleep. Yeah, overall, Honey Don't is by far the worst I've seen by one of the Coen brothers, and since this is one of the laziest and most boring and inconsistent movies I've seen this summer, and it is easily my pick is the number 7 worst film of the summer. Ethan Coen, you better hope Go Beavers at least ends the trilogy on a decent note, because this was not good, dude. I'm sorry, but this just wasn't.
My number 7 best. I have an interesting history about this film. Because originally, I hated this movie. It was one of my worst films of the year, and I didn't get the hype. But recently, I gave it a second chance, and now it's safe to say I finally got it. My number 7, Friendship.
That's also my number 7.
Yeah.
That's also my number 7.
Originally, I hated how there was no story for a supposed comedy. There weren't that many funny jokes, but the thing is, I just wasn't in the right mindset. So I rewatched this movie with a mindset of not really a comedy, more of a psychological thriller, and it really improved the experience for me. It's an intriguing character study in Tim Robinson slowly losing his mind after Paul Rudd came into his life. As the film goes on, you start to feel for him while also fearing him the more insane he becomes up until that suspenseful ending. While I still found some pacing and editing issues here and there, it's safe to say I like this movie this time around. It's a tense movie that'll never leave my mind, and it's my number 7 best.
And I already explained that it's also my number 7 best, so I might as well explain why I love this movie. This was such a twisted yet hilarious and poignant portrait of loneliness, narcissism, and the dangers of adult male friendship that had me laughing while also intrigued at some of the dumb yet understandable decisions Tim Robinson's character makes throughout. And speaking of Tim Robinson, what a show stealer he was in this movie. As I stated before in my review, what makes his performance so special isn't just because of how hilarious he is, but because at first you actually feel for the guy with how lonely he feels, despite being married to his wife and having a kid, and how he needs a guy friend to not only talk to, but also be accepted, while at the same time, you don't, with some of the dumb yet understandable decisions he makes later on in the film that makes him come across as a creeper, as a freaking creeper. Yeah, he's really good in this movie. And Paul Rudd, Kate Mara, and Jack Dylan Grazer are also brilliant in the film as well. The directing was fantastic, and my God, the humor. Boy, did the humor in Friendship work, especially with how twisted and absurd, yet witty and clever they felt. Especially that one scene involving a toad and Subway that had me dying of laughter. The musical score was both haunting and brilliant, especially with some of the synth waves that the composer put to give it more of an 80s vibe, and it has one of the most satisfying endings I've seen in the film this entire year so far. The only thing that kept it from being in the top 5 was that there were admittedly a couple characters, including Kate Mara's character, that did feel underutilized, and I wish they could have expanded upon more of. But that's really it. Overall, Friendship is twisted yet hilarious, poignant, and absolutely deserving to be my number 7 pick, to be Søren and I's number 7 pick. It's the best film that we both saw this summer. And as I stated before, Jurassic World Rebirth is my number 6 worst. So I might as well explain why this movie sucks so much. I don't care if this is an improvement over Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. It's still utter garbage.
It still sucks monkey fuck that shoots diarrhea up your fucking asshole.
Yeah. Hang on, let me find that clip. Again, just because it's better than Dominion and better than Fallen Kingdom does not automatically mean it's good. Because in the words of AVG, in the words of Angry Video Game Nerd, hold on, let me find that really quick. Hang on a second. I'm sorry, guys. All right. Just. God damn it. You know what? I might as well reenact it myself. It may be an improvement over the last film, over the last two films, but that's not saying much. It still sucks monkey fucking putes diarrhea up your fucking asshole.
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of any of these Jurassic World movies. And while this one isn't quite as bad as Fallen Kingdom or Dominion, it still didn't save us from being one of the most boring, cliched, contrived, and incoherent movies I've seen this summer. Yes, Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, and Jonathan Bailey all give up some good performances, and the film does have an excellent cinematography and a great musical score by Alexandre Desplat, but everything else was garbage. It's baffling on how atrocious David Koepp's screenplay was, not only with its clunky dialogue, but with the characterization being absolute horse shit. As I stated before, one of my biggest pet peeves in movies is when characters make some very dumb decisions, either for the sake of the plot or to pad out the runtime. And here, that's exactly the case. You know you're in trouble when literally the opening sequence of the film involves a Snickers bar. A fucking Snickers bar. And to answer your question, I don't think he's going downhill. It was just a bad movie. I mean, he does try his best. Unfortunately, the directing was unfortunately he like bless Garrett Edwards for trying, but unfortunately, like Dean Fleischer Camp with Lilo and Stitch, his directing couldn't save it due to it being saddled with such a garbage script.
Let's just face it, it's just a director for hire situation.
Yeah. And with that Snickers bar I just mentioned earlier, it's like they went for the lowest common denominator by having a decision involving a Snickers bar be the film's opening sequence. Like, what the actual shit? And poor Rupert Friend and Manuel Garcia Ruffalo are horribly wasting this movie, especially since they're not given that much to do. They're either again not given that much to do, or the material they were presented to was terrible. And the actor that plays it's Xavier Dobbs, Teresa's boyfriend, gives out one of the worst performances I've seen this entire year. Like, oh my God, he was so insufferable in this movie, especially with some of the idiotic decisions he makes throughout that. I have never wanted to see a character die more than him because of how much he infuriated me to no end. The action sequences, especially the boat sequence, are lackluster as hell. Especially since they lack any sort of tension or stake whatsoever. And don't even get me started on the visual effects on the dinosaurs, especially the oh my God, the distorted Rex. Like, hold on. Like, oh my God, like, look at this fucking thing. He looks like if the T-Rex from Jurassic Park fucked the alien from Ridley Scott's Alien. And this would end up being their love child. Oh, crap. Hold on. And this thing would end up being their love child. Just, again, you mean to tell me that thing is threatening? Like, are you kidding me? Overall, despite being better than Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, Jurassic World Rebirth is yet another proof why the series has seriously ran its course and it needs to die. It's boring, cliched, contrived, and incoherent, and just a complete waste of time. And that's why it's my number 6 worst.
My number 6 worst is the first and not last shitty action film of this list, Shadow Force. Well,
which is also my number 5 worst, but I'll get to that when I get to that.
Main actors do their best, but they can't save it from being a bland mess with shitty action, effects, and editing. One can only hope Joe Carnahan turns things around with his next film because this was such a boring mess. So my number 6 is Shadow Force. My number 6 best is the most underrated film this summer, and Nick had it in his dishonorable mentions, but I have it in my number 6 best, Karate Kid Legends. This to me did to martial arts what Top Gun Maverick did to the Air Force, a legacy sequel to an 80s classic that honors the original while also giving a modern experience. It's well acted, kept me engaged up until the thrilling climax, and combines the original and the remake way better than I originally feared. It's an underrated gem this year and my number 6 best.
Wish I can agree, man. I wish I can agree. My number 6 best, though. My number 6 best was a movie that I originally didn't like at first, but I knew I was missing out on something, so I decided to rewatch it again. And boy, am I glad that I gave it a second chance, because my number 6 is Splitsville. After seeing one of my favorite movies of 2020, which was The Climb, I was really looking forward to seeing how Michael Angelo Covino and Kyle Marvin were going to follow up that film with Splitsville, and boy, did they succeed with flying colors with this one. Splitsville is an original, thought-provoking, poignant, and hilarious satire on modern relationship dynamics, as well as infidelity and polyamory, that had me laughing throughout, while also having me on the edge of my seat at how anxiety-filled and outrageously chaotic the film at times felt as well. Dakota Johnson gives one of her best performances yet as Julie, and she had some very funny moments in the film as well. Adria Arjona, who's after surprising the hell out of me last year with Richard Linklater's Hitman, once again delivers another excellent performance as Ashley. Michael Angelo Covino and Kyle Marvin are also brilliant as both Paul and Carrie, respectively, and they also had great chemistry in the film as well. And the screenplay these two wrote for the film was brilliant, especially since not only did it have witty dialogue and its quirky yet fleshed out characters, but it also had a lot to say with its themes. It explores, such as relationships, honesty, polyamory, and infidelity. And on top of the story feeling well structured and engaging, as well as the film having terrific directing and a great soundtrack, terrific cinematography, the question on everyone's mind is the film funny? Yes. The humor and satire on modern relationship dynamics felt witty and clever, and there is some outrageous physical comedy shown in the film that had me dying of laughter as well. And it has one of the best endings I've seen. It has one of the best endings I've seen this entire year so far. Now, the only reason it's only at number 6 instead of in the top 5 is because there were a couple of editing choices the film made that did feel a bit uneven at times, but that's it. Overall, not only was Splitsville such a brilliant follow-up to Michael Angelo Covino and Kyle Marvin's previous movie, The Climb, but it's also one of the funniest and most original and entertaining films I've seen this entire year, and that's why it is my number 6 best. And as for my number 5 worst, Søren mentioned this one. It was his number 6 worst to my number 5 worst. You know where I'm going with this. It's Shadow Force. How could the motherfucking director of Narc and The Grey co-write and direct this fucking piece of shit?
And also a movie that I'm thinking of. What was
Cop Shop.
Yes. And the A-Team and the Smoking Aces.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? Apparently, Shadow Force wasn't screened for critics. Gee, I wonder why. This may be a theory, but Lionsgate must have probably knew this one was bad. Because Shadow Force is one of the most generic, cliched, and incomprehensible action movies I've ever seen. This is one of those movies where it left me feeling baffled and dumbfounded at how it not only got made, but at some of the incomprehensible choices the film makes, that by the time the credits rolled, it left me wondering, what in the hell did I just watch? And yes, I did hear about that. I have to be honest, I'm really worried about this. I'm really worried.
Especially with Paramount currently battling Netflix over it.
Yeah. My main thing I'm worried about if Netflix buys Paramount is the fact that the theatrical release might be short and limited, and that this could be the beginning of the end for physical media.
Then again, if Guillermo del Toro can fight for to get Frankenstein on Blu-ray, then there's hope, I guess.
Yeah, still though. Anyway, back to this. It does sound like a toy commercial. That would have actually been better than what we got.
Yeah.
Now the only reason Shadow Force is at number 5 instead of number 3 or 2 is because Omar Sy is the only actor in the film that actually gives out a good performance. Everything else sucked. From its incomprehensible story to its terrible writing and directing to the rest of the acting, especially from Kerry Washington and Mark Strong being terrible, as well as Devine Jordan Randolph feeling horribly wasted in this movie, to its terrible musical score, cinematography, editing, pacing, and to its abysmal action sequence. And as I stated before in my review, I would forgive this movie for its cliches as well as its bland story if the action in Shadow Force was entertaining. Unfortunately, the action in Shadow Force is terrible. Not only are the action sequences absolutely terrible with how they were choreographed, edited, and shot, but you mean to tell me that this movie cost $40 million to make, and they had the audacity to make the fire effect in this one sequence look this abysmal? $40 million. Like, also, you gotta love how the movie tries to tease a sequel, You gotta love how the movie at the end pulls a tease by saying, there will be a Shadow Force 2, there will be a Shadow Force 2.0 audience, which, newsflash, not happening. Especially given this.
At this point, Lionsgate is just lucky Now You See Me 3 performed as well as it did, and the Michael Jackson documentary is going to make money too.
Yeah, really. Try again, Lionsgate. Overall, Shadow Force is one of the most generic, boring, and incomprehensible action movies I've ever seen, and that's why it's my number 5 worst of the summer. Fuck this movie.
My number 5 worst is another generic action film, and it's by Guy Ritchie of all people, Fountain of Youth. This time it tries to be Indiana Jones, but just forgets to do something new with it. Actually, scratch that. It does give us something new. Boring and annoying characters, terrible CGI, and just making me feel nothing by the end. It's a pure definition of stream and slop, and it's the perfect contender for the number 5 spot. My number 5 best is actually a good action movie this time, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. While it's definitely the weakest of the Skydance era due to some pacing issues, it's still a solid enough way to end the series, as the action, story, and filmmaking have proven to be bigger and better with these installments. Like I've said before, it's worth accepting one last time to see Tom Cruise risking his life to save the world, and it's definitely my number 5.
My number 5 best was a movie that the more I thought about, the more it just got better and better and better, and that is F1.
Mm-hmm.
As a huge fan of Top Gun Maverick, I was very pleased with how F1 turned out. F1 isn't just one of the best racing films I've ever seen. racing movies I've ever seen. It's also one of the most highly entertaining and exhilarating films I've seen this summer. It takes something we've seen before. And successfully mixes up its formula to give us something unique and different for people both in the old and new generation to really enjoy and have such a great time with. Brad Pitt absolutely delivers one of his finest performances yet as Sonny Hayes, and Damson Idris also delivers such a fantastic breakthrough performance as Joshua Pierce. And he and Brad Pitt had great chemistry as well. On top of also Kerry Condon, Harvey Bardem, and Tobias Menzies are also terrific in the film as well. And on top of the film's highly engaging story, great screenplay, excellent directing, Hans Zimmer once again delivering yet another fantastic musical score, spectacular cinematography, and brilliant editing. The sound design was also fantastic, especially when it came to some of the racing sequences. And speaking of the racing sequences, how they were shot, edited, and directed, and how the sound design mixes in with those sequences alone is nothing short of spectacular. Now, the question is, how is F1 only number 5 on the list? Well, as I stated in my review, there was a romantic subplot between Brad Pitt and Kerry Condon that not only felt undercooked, but also felt unnecessary. That's the only reason this is number 5 on the list. But regardless, F1 is one of the most gripping, highly entertaining, and exhilarating films I've seen this summer, and it's a great way to kick off my top 5 best. Great job, Joseph Kosinski. Great job.
F2, can't wait to see it. Number 4 worst is yet another shitty action film this year. You see a trend here? Fight or Flight. This one tries to be like Bullet Train, except replace the charm and good action with a bland and boring story, action and comedy about as entertaining as child trafficking, and an underdeveloped plot up to a sequel-bait ending, which will never pay out because who the fuck even remembers this movie? So yeah, Fight or Flight is my number 4 worst.
My number 4 worst is a comedy, and it is the worst comedy I've seen this year so far. Bride Hard.
Well, not counting your number 1 worst, but we'll get to that later.
Oh boy, this piece of shit. Bride Hard is one of those movies where it thinks it could have its cake and eat it too by being an action comedy where terrorists are invading the wedding. But it falls very flat due to its incompetent story and the jokes that feel so unbelievably idiotic that by the time the movie's over, you're left feeling annoyed and baffled at what you just watched. And Rebel Wilson, for the love of God, stop playing the same fat Amy character over and over again. It's getting real repetitive. At this point. The days of Pitch Perfect are long gone. And it wasn't even that great. And it wasn't even that good in the first place. And the chemistry between her and Anna Camp, forget it. Like, there is no chemistry between them whatsoever, especially since Anna Camp was also obnoxious as Betsy. Again, I don't know if it's either the writing or the way she was directed, but she was so fucking annoying in this movie that it makes you want to tell her to just shut the hell up. Again, how am I supposed to buy for a millisecond that these two idiots are besties? And poor Davine Joy Randolph is horribly wasted in this movie. Once again, along with Anna Chlumsky and Stephen Dorff. The writing was absolutely atrocious, especially since it had characters that come across as being obnoxious and one-dimensional, as well as terrible dialogue and the tone being all over the place where it can't decide if it wants to be an action or a comedy. And it's clumsily edited and directed. The pacing was all over the place. It's also really predictable when it comes to some of the elements shown in the film. And almost all the jokes almost all the jokes in Brideheart felt juvenile and idiotic. And as for the action, well, to quote Stan from South Park, it sucks ass. Sure, it's decently choreographed, but what ruined it is the lack of tension and or stake it was supposed to have. Also, take a look at this. Take a look at this. Yeah, convincing green screen effects right there, guys.
What the fuck am I even looking at?
And how about this infamous one? Like, look at this. You could literally see like their hair's like blurring out. Just really? Overall, Brideheart is one of the most incompetent and idiotic comedy films I've ever seen, and it is currently my pick for the worst comedy I've seen this year so far. Aside from my number one worst film of the summer, which we'll get to when we get to it, but boy, I have a lot to say about that. So yeah, Brideheart, my number 4 worst of the summer. Fuck this movie.
My number 4 best is a movie I didn't talk about on my channel or this podcast until now because I just saw this movie yesterday. My number 4 is Weapons. I was originally not going to see this movie because I'm not really the biggest in the horror genre, but after all the buzz I've heard, I decided, what the hell, might as well see it. And I'm so glad I did because this was such a compelling movie. It truly feels like a Stephen King story from the characters to the story to the lore. Performances are all stellar from Benedict Wong to Josh Brolin to Julia Gardner to Amy Madigan. So well directed and well paced from the cinematography to the music. Kept me guessing from the opening to the closing credits. It's a movie I'm going to remember for a long time, and it's one of the better films of the year, as well as my number 4 best of the summer.
My number 4 best of the summer is the funniest film is one of the funniest movies I've seen this decade so far. The Naked Gun.
Which is my number 3.
All right, so The Naked Gun isn't just one of the best comedies I've ever seen, but one of the better comedy sequels I've seen in quite some time. This is one of those comedies where it not only did it have me laughing so hard at the jokes that were thrown at me from beginning all the way through the end, but it also appeals to everyone, no matter what generation you come from, whether one is an elderly, an adult, a teenager, or just a kid. And this proves why we need more comedies like The Naked Gun. Liam Neeson absolutely delivers one of his best performances yet as Frank Drebin Jr., especially with some of the line deliveries he had that made me laugh so hard. Pamela Anderson, who was brilliant last year in The Last Showgirl, also delivers what is quite possibly her best performance yet as Beth Davenport. And she and Liam Neeson have such great chemistry as well. Paul Walter Hauser was great as Ed Hawkins Jr., while Danny Houston was also brilliant as the Elon Musk-like villain named Richard Crane. And on top of great directing, a brilliant screenplay, good story, excellent score by Lauren Belf, as well as terrific cinematography, 95% of the jokes landed very well, especially with how well executed the amount of visual gets, the amount of visual gets, as well as potty mouth, slapstick, and dark humor felt to the point where it had me laughing so hard. And there were a couple of jokes thrown in the film. There were a couple of jokes thrown in the film that caught me off guard and in a great way that not only did it make me realize, holy shit, there are still some filmmakers out there who are willing to take a risk and making these types of jokes, but it also makes me wish that other filmmakers nowadays would do the same thing, no matter who it offends. Yes, humor may be subjective, but comedy is also about challenging people too. If you laugh, then it succeeds. If you didn't laugh, then it doesn't work. And with the comedy in The Naked Gun, it certainly works because of how much it made me laugh so hard throughout. And I also found the third act to be exciting, entertaining, and thrilling. And the way it ended was also brilliant. Yes, 5% of the jokes they threw in the film didn't quite hit as hard as they were, and or fell flat. But that's really my only gripe with the film. Overall, The Naked Gun 2025 is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and definitely deserving of the number 4 spot.
Number 3 worst is a movie that David Zaslav said no to, and for once I can actually see why. Fixed. Look, I love Jenny Tartakovsky, but what the fuck was he thinking? It's literally just one joke for an hour and a half. Dogs being horny. That's it. The animation and voice acting are standard. The story's predictable as all hell, and whoever's responsible for animating those dog balls and buttholes, please never speak to me. So yeah, Fix is my number 3 worst.
Okay. Okay, my number 3 worst. Oh boy, this is going to get ugly. My number 3 worst is a legacy sequel and one of the worst I've ever seen. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
More like I know what you did to this franchise.
Like, seriously. The fact that I would rather watch I Still Know What You Did Last Summer in a loop than sit through this piece of shit ever again really shows why this is one of the worst legacy sequels. Excuse me. One of the worst legacy sequels I've ever seen in my life. And not only that, it's also one of the most cynical, idiotic, and incomprehensible horror films I've ever seen. I may not be a fan of the original film. Nor its sequel. Yet, you don't need to be a fan of either of those films to realize on how much this sorry excuse to call itself a legacy sequel was both a slap in the face to people who even enjoyed the original film in the first place. I knew I was in trouble when I found out that this was co-written and directed by the same woman that also co-wrote Thor: Love and Thunder. Sure, you can argue that compared to most of the legacy sequels, there was some love and passion put into this. But here's the problem. All of that was horribly wasted due to how incomprehensible the directing felt and how absolutely terrible the writing felt. You don't give a shit about any of the characters in this movie. Especially with some of the idiotic decisions they make to the point where it makes you feel like ripping your hair off. Like, look at, especially with this one scene involving. Oh my god! I can't even believe I'm about to show this again. This one scene involving Teddy and the fisherman. Oh my god! Hold on, let me find this a bit. There we go. Again, how do you not see that the fisherman is right in front of you?
I don't even know.
And the amount of exposition dumps the film provided just to spoon feed the audience and make them look stupid really tested my patience, especially since we could pick up what's going on ourselves. And as for the acting, it sucks. Not only are everyone, including Chase Soy Wonders and Tyrick Winters, terrible in this movie, but you could tell they used Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. You could tell they used those two for reprising the roles for the sake of nostalgia. Like, my God, like, remember Ray? Remember Julie? Remember that? I remember. And I'll get to what they did with Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character in a bit. I'll get to that. And the scares, dear fucking Lord. Every single jump scare shown in the film, you could see coming from a mile away. And if that's not enough to piss you up, how about adding some false alarm jump scares into the mix? Once again, this shit is not scary. And to say that this is one of the worst plot twists and endings I've seen this entire year would be a massive understatement. Again, I might have to spoil this, but I don't care. You shouldn't see this movie anyway. So, spoilers, here we go. It was bad enough you have the obvious twist where Stevie, played by Sarah Pagan, was the fisherman killer the whole time, especially with her reasoning of being the odd one out, making absolutely no sense whatsoever. But it's on a whole nother level. Like, on a whole nother level, when Freddie Prinze Jr.'s Ray was revealed to be the killer the whole time. Even despite him risking his life to save Julie from the killer in the last 2 fucking movies. But that's okay. Let's just have him feeling sorry for Stevie that she wanted to get revenge on everybody that outed her as this weird friend, while also having an ending where the movie goes into full sequel bait tease where I don't know if it's either Ava or Danica, but one of them says, "Oh my God, did you hear that Stevie is alive?" As well as this audience insulting, cheering on top message where one of them also says, "You know what's funny? You know what's funny? None of this would have happened if men just went to therapy." I'm not kidding. One of them actually said, "You know what's funny? You know what's funny? None of this would have actually happened. None of this would have happened if men just went to therapy." Hold on. I got the clip too. Hold on. I got the clip. Nostalgia Critic, take it away. You can't be this stupid! You can't! Hold on. One more time. I'm sorry. You know what's funny? None of this would have happened if men actually went to none of this would have happened if men actually went to therapy. You can't be this stupid! You can't! Which made no sense whatsoever for her to say that, considering that the fisherman was a woman the entire time. Like, are you fucking real? And of course, we can't forget about that amazing mid-credits scene where Julie, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, receives a note saying it isn't over, and business fellow survivor Carla Wilson, played by Brandy Norwood, to ask for her help to find a stalker. Just stop it. Stop. Just stop. Do not make a sequel to this, Sony and Jennifer Kayden Robinson. We've had enough of this shit. Stop. Don't you dare make a sequel to this. Overall, I know what you did last summer. 2025 is one of the worst legacy sequels I've ever seen, and definitely one of the worst horror films I've seen in general too. It's a cynical, incomprehensible, and idiotic mess that adds nothing new to the franchise whatsoever. It becomes nothing more than a complete waste of time, and that's why it is in third place as the third worst film of the summer. And if you'll excuse me, I gotta go. I gotta go find my charger really quick. So Søren, you take over both number 3 worst and best. I'll be right back.
My number 3 best is hands down the funniest movie of the summer, Naked Gun 2025. In an era where the spoof film has seemingly died a slow and painful death, this movie revives it in spades by being consistently funny with a stellar cast and fun action. It's enough to make Jerry Zucker proud until you hear he doesn't actually care for this movie, but oh well. This movie still laugh out loud riot, which kicks up the top 3. My number 2 worst is the worst animated film of the summer, Smurfs. Hey, you know those shitty Sony movies from the early 2010s? Yeah, why not make another one of these, except with even more annoying voice acting, literally unfinished CGI, in-your-face product placement, and music and jokes that are about as funny as the ending to a Serbian film. It showcases Hollywood's laziness, and the fact that it's not even the worst of the year just goes to show how much of a shit show this summer has been. So that's my number two worst. Okay. My, my number two best is the best animated film of the year by far, Predator Killer of Killers. Between this and later with Badlands, Dan Trachtenberg has consistently breathed new life into this franchise ever since the Disney merger, with each film being both entertaining and diverse. And this one brings together three unique storylines that are just as consistently compelling, emotional, and brutal as the last, leading up to a kick-ass ending. I'm just mad Disney didn't give this a theatrical release because chances are this would have easily won the Best Animation Oscar if it did. But it's definitely the second best of the summer overall.
Hang on a second. All right. So, sorry about that, guys. Anyway, moving on to my number two worst. Yeah, you guys. Oh wait, my number three best. I'm sorry. My number three best, and this is where we're going to get to all the A+ movies I gave this summer. I gave three of those, and number three is one of them. And it is The Life of Chuck.
I'm just gonna stay the fuck away from this.
It's not hard to see why this won the People's Choice Award at TIFF last September. The Life of Chuck is not only one of the best films I've seen that's based on Stephen King's material, but it's also one of the most whimsical and deeply moving films I've ever seen. Mike Flanagan did such an incredible job crafting such a poignant and deeply moving portrait on not only life, but also memories and the human connection surrounding it, while also delivering such a brilliant message involving hope that makes you feel good on both the inside and outside by the time the credits roll. The story felt highly engaging and well-structured, especially with how the film makes a brilliant decision to have the three acts be in reverse chronological order. And not only was Mike Flanagan's directing terrific, but so was his screenplay, especially with the way it explores its themes on memories, connection, and hope, as well as exploring its heavy themes such as death and grief. The acting, especially from Tom Hiddleston, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Karen Gillan, Matthew Lillard, and Jacob Tremblay, was terrific. But it's Mark Hamill and Benjamin Pajak that were the biggest standouts to me. It's got a brilliant soundtrack, fantastic cinematography, cosmic and beautiful visual effects. And it also has one of my favorite endings I've seen this entire year so far. Overall, I love The Life of Chuck. It's one of the most poignant and deeply moving films I've ever seen, and a great way to kick off the top three best. As for my number two worst, though, well, you guys knew this was coming. You guys knew already from the start that this was coming. It was my original number one before another film took over its place, and yep, I might as well. You know what? I'm not going to be around the bush with this one. Number two is Hurry Up Tomorrow. Yep, Hurry Up Tomorrow. All the way in my number two worst. Hurry Up Tomorrow is one of the most self-indulgent, egocentric, and incompetent films I've ever seen in my life. Especially since this is one of those movies because it's barely a movie. It's barely a movie. It's just nothing but a 100-minute music video. It's nothing but just a music video stretched out through 100 minutes, as well as The Weeknd trying and failing to act and cry. And it's honestly scary that this was his vanity project, because because even though this is one of those movies that tries, it fails to say something about The Weeknd, and worst of all, it doesn't know what it wants to be at all. Doesn't know what the hell it wants to be. You know a movie's going to be bad when it starts out with him doing this. And literally the bars extend as a result of them doing that. Like, what? Not just that, but the story was such an incompetent and misguided mess. The writing sucks since it fails to say anything with its themes it's trying to explore, such as self-discovery, loneliness, and toxic relationships. The directing was a muddled mess. The acting was terrible, especially from The Weeknd, who was so bad playing a fictionalized version of himself. And even when he tries to cry, it's more laughable than it is emotional. And of course, there's this. just wait for it.
Okay, you go out there, you're destroying yourself. I just want to help you, and you won't let me help you. I'm not going to watch and stand by and let you hurt yourself because I care about you too much. And I just want to help you, Abel.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? I have to go right now. I'm getting calls. I have to catch a flight. I'm on a tour. I'm trying to be fucking nice. You see, I'm trying to be nice right now, right? You're forcing me to be bad, but I'm actually doing a good thing. All right? So just chill the fuck out and...
You're forcing me to be bad. Yeah, ironic.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Like, this is Tommy Wiseau. I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. Like, that is that level of bad we're dealing with right here, folks.
When even Ice Cube in the War of the Worlds is trying compared to this, you know you have a problem.
And when you waste Jenna Ortega and Barry Keoghan in a film by giving them not that much material to work with, you know you fucked up. And as for the editing, my God, to say this is some of the worst editing I've seen this year would be a massive understatement, especially within the first 20 minutes of the film, where all of a sudden it goes into fast motion like it's either a fucking music video or a commercial. And that ending, like that shitting ending, that ending where all of a sudden Jenna Ortega's character explains to The Weeknd the meaning of his songs after she tied him up to his bed, and then all of a sudden she dances to one of his songs like an exotic dancer. And then after she does that, and after Abel sings "Hurry Up Tomorrow," she unties him and sets the hotel room on fire? Like, what? Oh my God. Yeah, overall, what else is there to say about Hurry Up Tomorrow and why it sucks so much? It's shamelessly cynical, unbearably pretentious, self-indulgent, unbelievably incompetent, and horribly misguided. And that's why it serves as my runner-up in terms of the worst movie I saw this summer. Again, it would have been my pick for the worst film I saw this summer if it wasn't for another film that came out 2 months later. And we'll get to that when I get to my number one worst. But right now, let's get to my number two best. And here we go. My number two best film of the summer. My number two best film of the summer is Sorry Baby. Sorry Baby was absolutely one of the most thought-provoking, absorbing, and deeply moving films I saw this summer. Eva Victor did an incredible job crafting a quiet yet thought-provoking portrait of how one experiences trauma because of one very bad thing that happened to them and what they must do to move on from this. Eva Victor's directing was fantastic, especially with how she guides us through this journey involving the experience Agnes goes through, as well as how she responds, where her life goes from there, and how she has to adapt after witnessing this horrible and traumatic thing happening to her, as well as doing a terrific job taking a subject that's difficult to talk about in a mature, realistic, and respectful manner. And her screenplay is absolutely one of the year's best so far. Not only due to how well written the dialogue felt and how real and fleshed out the characters felt, but with how it balances its black comedic and dramatic elements very well, as well as exploring its main theme on trauma and how to deal with it, as well as other themes involving healing and the emotional bonds of relationships that carry us through. And on top of that, Eva Victor's performance as Agnes was absolutely remarkable, mainly due to how raw, powerful, and natural her character's reactions felt. Naomi Ackie was also brilliant as Agnes's best friend Liddy. Lucas Hedges, Kelly McCormack, and John Carroll Lynch are also great in the film as well. And what I also loved about Sorry Baby was how, even despite its dark subject matter, it wasn't afraid of being funny at times, too. Like, there were moments in the film involving some lines of dialogue, as well as this one scene. I'm not going to give away what happens, but let's just say it's involving a mouse that had me laughing so hard. Like, and on top of the film's gorgeous cinematography and excellent editing, it also has one of my favorite endings I've seen this entire year. Overall, Sorry Baby was absolutely thought-provoking, absorbing, and deeply moving, and it is my runner-up as the best movie I saw this summer. The question is, what could beat it? Well, we'll find out after Søren talks about his number one worst, and I talk about my number one worst, and so on. Søren, you're up next, dude.
My number one worst. I have a bone to pick with this movie. Ari Aster, what the fuck happened to you? First two movies, Hereditary and Midsommar, were among the very best horror films of the 2010s. Both Afraid was disappointing, but somehow some of this movie managed to make that film look like Goodfellas by comparison. Eddington. Eddington is not a movie. It's just 2.5 hours of an old man bitching about the world without even saying anything about it. How do you waste the likes of Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, and Austin Butler just by having them wander around this town during the COVID lockdown? There's practically no story. Every character is an asshole for the sake of it, and it all leads up to an ending like nothing's accomplished. And now where the world's gone to shit when it comes to politics and such, all this movie did was remind me of that as opposed to entertain me. And as a result, it depressed me to no end. If I wanted to be depressed by the real world for 2.5 hours, I'd subject myself to nonstop Fox News rambling about the Epstein files whilst having my eyelids stapled open. And honestly, I'd rather watch anything again. But the fact that I had to think about it just goes to show how horrendous it actually is, and why it's hands down the worst movie of the summer.
My worst film of the summer. Honestly, Søren, I'd rather watch Eddington more than this piece of shit again, because yeah, you guys know it by heart. My number one worst film of the summer, Smurfs. Smurfs. Yeah. Smurfs is one of the worst animated films I've ever seen in my life. I may not be a fan of the Smurfs, yet you don't have to be a fan to realize that not only was this one of those movies where it was not only a spin in the face to Peyo's source material, but it also treats kids like they're stupid by shoving a bunch of modern-day references down their throats for the sake of a joke instead of, oh, I don't know, giving us a good story with good characters we can attach onto, as well as relate, as well as a good message that kids can learn from and parents can relate to. As I stated before in my review, these are the type of movies I hate. Whether they're animated or live action, they treat their audience, especially kids, like they're dumb idiots. And Smurfs is definitely, is absolutely, without any ounce of doubt, one of the worst examples of this. The animation absolutely sucks, especially since the stylish 2D and CGI animation do not mesh well at all. Since not only does it feel rushed, but it feels so bland, but it looks so bland that it looks like something you would find in a straight to DVD animated movie at a Walmart bargain bin for $2. And even when we get to the scenes where the Smurfs are in the real world, the 2D and CGI animation absolutely do not mesh well with live action whatsoever. Especially since they don't do anything with the live action scenes whatsoever. Also, the screenplay sucks. Not only was the characterization was such an incompetent mess. On top of the Smurfs and the snooter poops, like, oh my god, the snooter poops, like, really? Who comes up with that? Who came up with that shit? Anyway, on top of them being such annoying little shits, I want to know who the fuck thought it was a good idea to not only make Razamel the main villain, but also give Gargamel a redemption arc. I despise the Smurfs, but I despise my brother even more. Like, what?
I need Kylo Ren to lose.
Even despite everything he did to the Smurfs in the past, they decided to give Gargamel a redemption arc. Like, that is character inconsistency bumped to the 10th degree. And finally, the themes and messages of self-discovery, finding yourself, and kindness feel so poorly executed, especially since this has been done in other films before. The voice acting also sucks balls. 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 Fuck that shit, man! Kids deserve better animated films than this piece of shit. Like, if a movie is terrible, whether it's live action or animated, people have good reasons to hate it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, Rihanna and James Corden are both horribly miscast as both Smurfette and No Name Smurf. No Name Smurf. Like, who comes up with that? Especially since not only was Rihanna basically playing herself rather than the character she's voicing, but even despite not quite being as horrendous as he was in the Emoji Movie and Cats, whatever vocal performance James Corden was even trying to pull off as the voice of No Name Smurf is nowhere to be seen here, especially when you have to hear his obnoxious singing during the out-of-place musical numbers.
It's just James Corden playing James Corden.
Like, the last thing I would ever want to hear is James Corden's hear from James Corden's Smurf is his goddamn singing. Is his goddamn singing. Why? And as for everybody else, such as Nick Offerman, Daniel Levy, Amy Sedaris, Natasha Lyonne, Sandra Oh, Jimmy Kimmel, Octavia Spencer, Nick Kroll, Hannah Wenningham, Alex Winter, Kurt Russell, and John Goodman, they all felt like they didn't put any effort into the characters they were voicing and were just clearly there for the paychecks. The soundtrack was obnoxious. It's also filled with some goddamn cliches that you've seen in other films before, including this one subplot where the Smurfs enter into different dimensions, such as the claymation dimension, the drawing dimension, the ColecoVision dimension, and the anime dimension, which feels so shoehorned in. And finally, the jokes. to say that Smurfs has some of the worst jokes I've heard, not only this year, but in any other family film, whether it's live action or animated, would be a massive understatement. Why? Because aside from the idiotic, I just smurfed my pants joke, which was also shown in the trailer, there's a bunch of idiotic jokes involving modern, like, oh yeah, before I get to that thing, we have this one idiotic running gag involving Smurf's pet's obsession with French fries, Smurf being the real F-bomb, as if we didn't learn our lesson from the first two Smurfs live action Smurfs movies in the first place. As well as sound effects Smurf. And how about this?
This is Gabby.
And how about a bunch of idiotic modern day references involving, I'm not making this up by the way, involving DoorDash and podcasts.
How do you do, fellow kids?
At least they curb stop influencers, Smurf.
Yeah, really. Again, was this movie even written by a real human being? Overall, Smurfs has officially dethroned the Boss Baby family business as being the worst animated film I've seen this decade so far. Especially since this is one of the most cynical, incompetent, and idiotic animated films I've ever seen in my life. And that's why Smurfs is easily my pick as the worst film I've seen this summer. And you know, yeah, it definitely don't feel like it was written for 5-year-olds. It would have been my worst film of the year if it wasn't for another film that I'm going to mention in a bit, but we'll get to that. But in the meantime, in the words of rap critic, fuck this movie. Fuck it straight to hell with a dirty dick.
My number one best had a lot going for it. After the DCEU fell flat on its face, James Gunn had the Herculean task to start from scratch while also making audiences interested in these characters again. The fact that he succeeded in space is an accomplishment. My number one best of the year is Superman. This is what summer movies are made for. It takes the Superman mythos we all know and love and gave us a superhero we've been missing since 2013. The optimistic Boy Scout that the comics have portrayed for almost a century. Every character is both charismatic and interesting, from the fan favorites to even characters casuals have never even heard of. The music's great, the costumes are great, the effects are great, and it's just a living, breathing comic book with colorful visuals and emotional storytelling. It makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it can be funny, it can be dark, it gives you a good feeling by the end, and it makes you interested for the future of DC after James Gunn made it great again. And that is why Superman is hands down the best film of the summer.
My number one favorite film of the summer, Søren mentioned it, and I might as well mention it too, with this fanfare. Weapons. Yep, my number one film of the summer is Weapons. Not only is Weapons another home run for Zach Krager, but this is also one of the best horror films I've seen this entire year as well. This was one of those movies where it had me on the edge of my seat throughout, with not only how intriguing and unpredictable the mystery aspects of the film felt, but with how powerful, terrifying, and chilling the whole experience felt as well. And it shows on why Zach Krager, between this and now Barbarian, is one of the biggest voices in horror right now. The way the story was told in a non-linear narrative was very well executed, and Zach Krager did an incredible job with the way he directed the film, especially with not only how he crafted the real tension and suspense, but with how he guides us through the character's perspective with what they saw happen given that one terrifying event. And as for a screenplay, it's one of the year's best, especially since it does a fantastic job exploring its themes on grief, trauma, and power. Julia Gardner, Josh Brolin, Benedict Wong, and Alden Ehrenreich all deliver some of the finest performances of their careers, while Carrie Christopher absolutely delivers one of the best breakthrough performances I've seen this entire year as Alex, the kid who didn't disappear from Justine's class. And Amy Madigan, oh my God, what a performance she gave as Gladys. When I say this is one of the best supporting performances I've seen this entire year, I fucking mean it. Like, she needs to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress. That's how good she is in the film. When you see it, you don't know why. And when it comes to the film's mystery aspects, it's in these following words: effective, intriguing, and unpredictable, since it keeps you on the edge of your seat while wondering on where it's going to go. And is the film scary? Hell yes. Not only does the film deliver some real tension and suspense throughout, but once it builds up and elevates to a certain reveal, it actually freaked me out and scared me. It also has some well-crafted scares I've seen in a horror film this entire year as well. And the third act was fantastic. Not only did it have me on the edge of my seat, especially with the resolution and how it all came together, but it also has one of the best endings I've seen this entire year. Like, the way it ended couldn't feel any more satisfying than that. Overall, Weapons is one of the best and most powerful, intriguing, terrifying, and unpredictable horror films I've seen this entire year, and it's hands down my pick for the best film of the summer. Well done, Zach Krager. Well done. And now, well, that's it for the list. But this podcast it's not over yet, because we got a ton of movies we got to talk about for this podcast. And unfortunately, I have to talk about this piece of shit. Bloody hell. So, remember when I said that Smurfs was the worst movie I saw this year so far? Well, it's no longer that. It has been dethroned by one other film. Ladies and gentlemen, that film is The Strangers Chapter 2. So if you remember from last year, I haven't been the biggest fan of those Strangers movies. I really didn't like the original Strangers, and I hated The Strangers Pray at Night. And The Strangers Chapter 1 was my pick for the worst horror movie I saw last year. So as you could probably tell, I was not looking forward to seeing Chapter 2 at all. Yet the funny thing about all of this was that it was supposed to come out last fall. But when Chapter 1 received a lot of negative feedback from critics and audiences, and even fans of the Strangers films, following its release, even despite its commercial success, they decided to delay the film's release for reshoots. I was even more pissed earlier this year when I saw that it had replaced the release date of Saw 11, especially given how Saw 10 surprised the hell out of me with how good it was. And usually I walk into movies with an open mind, hoping it would be good, but not this time. I knew it was going to be bad going in. But holy shit. The Strangers Chapter 2 was much, much worse than I feared it would be. In fact, I not only hated The Strangers Chapter 2 more than Chapter 1, but it has not only has it officially dethroned I Know What You Did Last Summer, the Legacy sequel, as being the worst horror movie I've seen this entire year so far, but it is also the worst horror movie I've seen in the last 5 years.
Well, in the words of Mundell from Chowder, I'm impressed. It's even worse than last time.
This was such an incompetent, idiotic, and reprehensible mess that not only bored me, but also infuriated me, especially with not only how idiotic some of the decisions made in the film were, but with how almost nothing happens throughout the entire film, given that it has one bad chase sequence stretched out through over 90 goddamn minutes. And this shows on why making the strangers why having the strangers be turned into 3 chapters was dead on arrival from the start. Especially since we know that Maya is going to survive in this, so that she could be in chapter 3. But before I even rip this movie a new asshole, I know what some of you are thinking. Are there at least any redeeming qualities in The Strangers Chapter 2? Well, Madeline Pesh is the only actress that tries her best in the film. Otherwise, no. So let's not be around the bush here. Let's get to reasons why this is the worst horror film I've seen in 2025 so far. The story, number 1. The story, yeah, right. What story are we even talking about here? As stated before, almost nothing happens throughout the entire movie. Number 2, Rennie Harlan's directing is such an incompetent mess, especially with how he crafts his scares, which I'll talk about soon when I get to the scares. Number 3, Alan R. Cohen and Alan Friedland have done it again. If you thought the screenplay they wrote in Chapter 1 was bad, their screenplay in Chapter 2 makes it look like Shakespeare in comparison. And that comes down to 2 things. Number 1, this movie has some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in not only a horror film, but in any other film in 2025. Especially when you have lines like this. You want my theory? She did it. The girl. Probably for some big insurance money, gorgeous hair, for a black heart, but a dark heart. As well as, So Mr. Hey Sweetie Pie is from Denver. Some kind of salesman. His name is on his shirt. Like that is quality level writing there, guys. Quality level, Shakespeare, man. That is Shakespearean writing. This should definitely win the Oscar for best adapted screenplay. What a great screenplay this is. And as you can probably tell, that was sarcasm. But you already knew that from the start. And number 2, like the last film, the characterization is absolute dog shit. Not only are the characters in this movie so paper thin and one-dimensional, but they also make some very dumb decisions in Chapter 2 where it not only infuriated me to no end because of how those decisions they made didn't make any freaking sense whatsoever. Like, there's this one scene, and you know what, I'm about to spoil this movie, but you know what, who cares? Don't see this movie. I'm spoiling it. Here we go. Like, there's this one scene where Maya climbs into a morgue door with a dead body, and she opens the door from the inside. I'm sorry, but that's not how that works. Like, the morgue door, even despite it having a handle, is sealed shut. You can't open a morgue door from the inside. And how about this other idiotic scene where Maya stabs one of the strangers with a pitchfork and then runs away, and that stranger is not dead even after that happened? Like, here's the solution, Maya. Keep beating and stabbing the goddamn stranger with a pitchfork until she's dead, for crying out loud!
First the rifle gun thing and now this.
Hold on a second.
Shoot. Just stab them with a fucking pitchfork. It is the easiest solution in the whole damn world. What the fuck is your problem?
I wish I could, but I've already wasted my energy on that. And I really don't want to waste my time with it. I really don't want to repeat myself again and again. Also, the fact they made the characters that's not Maya a red herring. Good Lord. To make matters worse, you have these 2 cops who might just be some of the dumbest cops I've ever seen on film in the diner with one of them saying to the other, hey, this girl's missing. Maybe we should go and get the FBI. But then the other says she ain't missing. She's got 24 hours until she's released. Like, Motherfucker! There were people killed in the same hospital that Maya escaped from and is missing. And you have the nerve to say that she's not missing? Like, are you out of your fucking mind? Excuse me. Number 4, the acting sucks. I feel really bad for Madeline Patchby since she has a lot of talent, and she's the only actress in the film that tries to give out a good performance. It's unfortunate, though, that the material she was given to was terrible. And everybody else in the film was terrible, too, especially Gabriel Basso. The musical score was a scrambled mess of noisy chaos. It's got bland cinematography. The pacing was all over the place. It goes for those cliches that you've seen in countless of other horror films before, including one of my biggest pet peeves, where characters make some dumb decisions for the sake of the plot or to pad out the runtime. And finally, let's get to five glaring issues I have with the film. Number 1, the predictable jump scares. The way Rennie Harlan crafts the jump scares in The Strangers Chapter 2 was absolutely pathetic. You could predict every single jump scare coming from a mile away, which destroys any sort of tension it's even trying to go for whatsoever. Number 2, the editing. The editing was horrendous. I thought him had the worst editing of 2025. To say I was dead wrong would be a massive understatement. This is the worst editing I've seen this entire year. It was bad enough when the film started that it cuts to a production logo, then a scene, then another production logo, then another scene, then another production logo, and then another scene before finally revealing the title card. But what makes the editing in The Strangers Chapter 2 so bad is how it relies way too much on some quick cut edits. Like, the overabundance of quick cut edits was so distracting that not only was it hard for me to tell what the hell was even going on, but it also made me think, did Lionsgate or the people involved hire a kindergartner, a toddler, and a TikToker to edit this movie? Oh my God. Number 3, the unnecessary flashbacks. The unnecessary use of flashbacks and the reasoning for how the Strangers came to be made no sense. I wasn't kidding when not only were there flashbacks to the first chapter, really unnecessary? Yeah, good job reminding me of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, guys. Especially since what we saw happen in the first film, and not only were the flashback scenes of the Strangers also unnecessary, but the reasoning for how they came to be made no fucking sense at all. You're not going to believe how they came to be. Listen to this. So it's revealed that the pinup girl, told in flashback as a child in school with Scarecrow, killed another student named Tamara out of jealousy. And that is how the Strangers came to be.
You know, not everyone needs an origin story.
Exactly. Like, you know what? Yeah, exactly. Like, even though I didn't like the first Strangers film from 2008, they gave us a reason for why they're attacking the couple's house, because of this one line said by one of the killers, because you're home. That's why they were attacking the couple. With this, it's just like they decided to pull that shit out of their. It seems like the writers and director Rennie Harlan decided to pull the reasoning for how the Strangers came to be out of their asses. Like, girl, you could have just found another boy and kissed him too. Number 4, this one scene literally rips off The Revenant. It literally rips off the bear scene from The Revenant. Only it's not a bear, but it's a boar. And when we see the boar, oh my God, it is laughably horrendous in CGI. Like look at this. Look at this. Let me pull it up. Like, look at this shit. Look at this shit, man. They just CGI the war. You expect like, and look at this.
Wow, the Timon and Pumbaa spinoff is looking a lot more violent than I imagined.
You expect me to believe that a poorly done CGI boar is frightening? You expect me to believe that? Especially when it looks like something out of a cartoon? A Saturday morning CGI cartoon? And finally, the ending. This is the worst ending I've seen this entire year. Just when I thought this movie was at least going to get interesting, not only does it end on just like how the last film ended on to be continued, but in the middle of the credits, they also play a teaser that promotes The Strangers Chapter 3. Just how cynical are you? Like, if that isn't one of the most cynical and idiotic moves I've ever seen a film do, then I don't know what is. And yeah, Taz, I'm all right. I'm all right. Didn't expect to fall out of my chair laughing. First time I ever did that, honestly. My God. Yeah. Overall, not only is The Strangers Chapter 2 worse than the first film, but this is also one of the lousiest and most incompetent, idiotic, and reprehensible horror films I've ever seen in my life. Oh yeah, and one last thing about that boar scene. One last thing about that boar scene, the wild boar scene. As stated by a former critic and contributor of Channel Awesome, don't remind me of a better movie I could be watching in your shitty movie. Like, there's a difference between being inspired by it and just ripping it off. The Strangers Chapter 2 does the latter. It rips it off. Just ripping off a better movie that I could, ripping off a scene from a better movie I could be watching, just absolutely pathetic. There are some, anyway, yeah, it is one of the worst horror films I've ever seen in my life. There are some bad movies I saw this year, whether it's Captain America, Brave New World, a Minecraft movie, Jurassic World Rebirth. If by ready and excited you mean that it's also my least anticipated film of 2026, then yeah, I am excited. Anyway, there are some bad movies. I have seen some bad movies this year, whether it's Captain America, Brave New World, a Minecraft movie, Jurassic World Rebirth, Honey Don't, and A Big Bold Beautiful Journey, Love Hurts, Snow White, the live-action remake, The Woman in the Yard, Shadow Force, and Him, as well as Flight Risk, The Electric State, Hurry Up Tomorrow, Bride Hard, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and the abysmal Smurfs 2025. But the fact that The Strangers Chapter 2 makes those films look like a masterpiece in comparison really shows on why this is so far the worst movie I have seen this entire year so far. Not only is it the lowest of the low in terms of horror movies that came out this year, but it is also the bottom of the barrel in terms of movies that I saw in 2025. This is without any doubt the worst movie that I've seen in 2025 so far. Lionsgate, Rennie Harlan, Alan R. Cohen, Alan Freeland, and the producers should be downright ashamed themselves, because not only was this such a cynical exercise in pointlessness, but it was also a complete waste of time. And yeah, if you haven't guessed already, you already know what it's going to get. I haven't given one of these since Smurfs, so might as well do it right here. It's getting my 7th 0 out of 10 or an F. As well as a special burn in hell rating. This is a disgrace to horror films. Do not waste your time with this one. Even if you're a huge fan of The Strangers, don't waste your time. Please do not waste your time with this. It is not worth it. And John Wick, if you're saying that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is worse than Smurfs, I'll accept that challenge to see if this is worse than The Strangers Chapter 2, because I don't want to see any other film this year that's worse than fucking Strangers Chapter 2. Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie. Fuck it straight to hell with a dirty dick.
Indeed. Next up, Eleanor the Great. And I was looking forward to ScarJo's directorial debut, especially after I heard June's script was a test. But ultimately, this was a disappointing mess. While the actors gave it their all in its decent filmmaking, I found the main character completely unlikable and made sure the audience knew that not even 5 minutes in, which she berates a young store clerk for no reason. And the tone is all over the place and tried to come across as sentimental, but it doesn't work since the story about June lying about being a Holocaust survivor just to not feel alone is kind of disturbing if you think about it. So, unless you're a huge fan of ScarJo or June's Grave, just avoid this movie at all costs, so seal mediocrity.
I actually like this film. I actually like this movie. You know what, Søren? I actually like this film. I was invested in the story, especially with how engaging it felt. For her first time directing a movie, I thought Scarlett Johansson did a very good job, especially with the way she directs the actors and actresses in the film. The screenplay was solid, especially with the way it explores themes on aging, grief, Jewish identity, and friendship. The acting was terrific. June Squibb was magnificent as Eleanor Morgenstein. And Erin Kellyman, who you may recall from being in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, while she was also in The Green Knight and recently 28 years later, was fantastic as the college journalist named Nina Davis. And she and Squibb have such great on-screen chemistry as well. Chiwetel Ejiofor was also brilliant as Nina's father, Roger Davis. And Rita Zohar was fantastic as Eleanor's deceased best friend, Bessie Stern, who was also a Holocaust survivor. And believe it or not, fun fact, Rita too is also a Holocaust survivor in real life.
Huh.
Yeah. She was, although Rita was born in 1944, she was actually born in a concentration camp during World War II.
Interesting.
That's where, and in the 1950s, she immigrated to Israel with her mother. It's true, by the way. Look it up. Anyway, back to this. The score was very good. The musical score was very good. It's got excellent cinematography, some moments of good dry humor added to the mix, and a very moving ending, especially how we hear Bessie's experience with the Holocaust. Now, there were some pacing issues in some spots. A couple editing choices felt uneven. and it does have its share of and it definitely did have its share of cliches, including the lying main plot, which I'm definitely not a fan of. It didn't bother me here, but it's something I thought I addressed too. But overall, I found Eleanor the Great to be a moving, poignant portrait on grief, aging, Jewish identity, and friendship, featuring a magnificent performance by June Squibb. 8 out of 10 or a B+. I really enjoyed this movie.
Next up, we have Anemone. You know I had to make that reference. And Danny Day-Lewis's return to the spotlight should have been treated with dignity, but it's ended up being such a mess. He himself is good, along with Sean Bean and the rest of the cast, and it's got some nice cinematography and music. And the story itself had potential in exploring themes of familial past and trauma, but it only explored them at face value. And the pacing is aggravating. His first act especially had no plot, and the third act turned into some weird sci-fi shit. And while I'm glad Daniel decided to come back, his first movie back left so much to be desired, sealed mediocrity.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of this one either. I'll say this. For his first time directing a movie, I thought Ronan Davis did a good job with the way he directed the film, especially with not only how he directs the actors, but how you could see the vision and passion he had behind the camera. The acting was terrific. Daniel Day-Lewis gives out one of his finest performances yet as Ray Stoker. Sean Bean was also brilliant as Jem Stoker, Ray's brother, and both he and Day-Lewis have delivered such great chemistry as well, since it makes you believe that they're both brothers. Samantha Morton, Samuel Bottomley, and Safia Oakley Green are also great in the film as well. The score was captivating and haunting. The cinematography was outstanding, and it had excellent sound design as well. Unfortunately, this is one of those movies that I wanted to love but couldn't. The reason? Well, the story didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would, due to it coming across as being an uneven mess. And while Ronan Day-Lewis did a good job with the way he directed the film, the screenplay that he and Daniel Day-Lewis wrote for the film is sadly my biggest issue I have with it. Since not only did some of the supporting characters feel underutilized, but the themes it's trying to explore, such as family, unconditional love, and violence, sadly felt undercut. Some of the editing choices felt jarring and uneven. It also suffers through a lot of pacing issues in some spots, and I also found the film's ending. I found the ending to be underwhelmingly abrupt. Overall, while it was good seeing Daniel Day-Lewis on screen again, as he gives out one of his finest performances yet, and the film does deliver some striking visuals here and there, I unfortunately found Anemone to be a frustratingly incohesive and underwhelmingly convoluted. And because of that, Anemone is one of my most disappointing films of the year. 5 out of 10 or a C+. I really wanted to love this, but I couldn't.
And speaking of disappointments, The Smashing Machine. This is supposed to do to Dwayne Johnson's career what Good Time was to Robert Pattinson and Uncut Gems was to Adam Sandler, but I came out of it severely underwhelmed. Saw performances from the likes of The Rock himself and Emily Blunt, and Dwayne's wrestling days paid off in his wrestling sequences. Story's a mess, barely touching on Mark Kerr's wrestling career and relationship with his girlfriend at past face value. Pacing was all over the place, and there's plenty of sports biopic cliches. One can only hope that Josh Safdie's Maury Supreme turns out better this year than his brother, and I only hope that Benny Safdie does better when he voices Bowser Jr. next year. So see a mediocrity.
I thought it was decent, but I was a little disappointed with how it turned out. To be fair, there are some good things in The Smashing Machine. It's very well directed by Benny Safdie. The acting was terrific. Dwayne Johnson absolutely delivers his best performance yet as Mark Kerr. Ryan Bader was fantastic as Mark Coleman, while Emily Blunt also delivers a great performance as Don Staples. The score was haunting and excellent. The cinematography was fantastic. The makeup was terrific. And the rest of the sequences are absolutely brilliant, especially with how they were shot, choreographed, edited, and directed. Now, with that being said, I'm about to mention why this film fell a bit short from being what could have been one of the best movies of the year. First off, the story didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would, since not only was it repetitive by how paint by numbers it felt, but it also felt unfocused with what it was trying to say, or or tell what I was trying to say about Mark Kerr. While Benny Safdie did a great job with the way he directed the film, I unfortunately cannot say the same for the screenplay since he wrote, especially since some of the dialogue felt clunky and it tries to say a lot with its themes involving masculinity and morality, but those themes unfortunately never come to fruition due to how undercooked they felt. Some of the editing choices felt jarring and uneven. It also suffers through some pacing issues here and there. It also has a share of cliches that you've seen in other sports dramas before, and the ending felt anticlimactic. Overall, the Smashing Machine was fine. Yes, it can be frustrating with its jarring and uneven narrative and the cliches the film presents, but Dwayne Johnson's tour de force performance as Mark Kerr does make this one worth giving a watch. So, 6 out of 10 or a B-. Next movie I'm about to talk about is Good Boy. Good Boy is another film. It's another film from IFC and Shudder. And in Good Boy,
and it's not to be confused with that alien dog movie from the 2000s.
Oh yeah,
or the Tremblay movie, Good Boys.
The less I say about Good Boys, the better. Anyway, in Good Boy, it involves a man who moves into a new house that has supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As dark entities start to threaten him, his brave dog comes to the rescue. This wasn't on my radar until IFC, along with Shudder, released this nationwide on the same day as The Smashing Machine and Anemone, and I decided to give this one a watch, given that I enjoyed some of Shudder's other films like Oddity, Clown in the Cornfield, and Dangerous Animals. And boy, am I glad that I decided to check out Good Boy, because I really, really like this one a lot. Not only was Good Boy a thought-provoking and deeply moving portrait on isolation, loss, love, and loyalty, but as a horror film, it worked because of how haunting, chilling, and intriguing the whole thing felt. Especially with how director Ben Leonberg made a brilliant decision to have the whole thing be told in a dog's point of view. It really does make you feel like you're in Indy's perspective of what he sees and fears, which made the tension and the unnerving atmosphere feel so overwhelmingly intriguing. Which was why I ended up being invested in the story throughout. Which was why I found the story to be engaging, haunting, and intriguing throughout. It's very well directed. The acting was solid, with Indy the dog being the best actor, with Indy the dog being the one that stole the entire show, to the point where I would argue that this is one of the best performances I've seen from a dog actor since Messi from Anatomy of a Fall. He is that good.
We need the dog Indiana.
It has a haunting musical score, excellent cinematography, solid editing. The sound design was brilliant. The film's tension and eerie atmosphere felt real, and the way it ended couldn't be any more satisfying than that. Now, as for issues, while I said in my positives that Ben Leonberg did a great job with the way he directed the film, and although it does a very good job exploring its themes on isolation, love, and loss, and loyalty, I did feel the screenplay that he and Alex Cannon wrote for the film could have used some improvement on the dialogue, since it did feel clunky at times, as well as the characterization, since the human characters felt underdeveloped. And there were admittedly some pacing issues in the second act as well, but that's really it. Overall, I found Good Boy to be a visually striking, haunting, chilling, intriguing, and thought-provoking horror film featuring a wonderful performance by Indy the dog. 8 out of 10 or a B+. I really enjoyed this movie. Check it out.
Next we have
especially if you're a dog lover.
Now we get to Tron Ares, and I was excited.
Oh God!
And I was excited when I heard Disney was bringing back one of the more moderately successful 2010s movies, but watching it left me severely underwhelmed. While the visuals, action sequences, and music are on par with the last one, the same can't be said with anything else. Story's a cliched mess, the characters range from bland to annoying, and it also throws in these member berries from the other movies just for the sake of it. And if you go into this movie expecting a very expensive Nine Inch Nails music video, it's really not that bad. But if you're looking for an emotionally compelling story, this ain't it. Seal mediocrity.
It's not here. It's not here. And by the way, he gives it a seal of mediocrity. As for me, I am not exaggerating when I say that this not only is Tron Ares the worst film in the series, but this was absolutely one of the most boring and extremely forgettable films I've seen this entire year. This is one of those movies where, yes, it does look and sound cool in terms of its visuals and soundtrack, but you end up feeling underwhelmed and bored because of how frustratingly convoluted the story felt, especially since not only did it feel like the sequel to Tron, not only did it not feel like a sequel to Tron Legacy, but it also clearly had no idea what it's trying to go for, to the point where it just becomes nothing more than a waste of time. Now, there are some good things in it, to be fair. The musical score by Nine Inch Nails was brilliant. The cinematography was fantastic. The CGI visual effects in Tron Ares are surprisingly terrific and definitely better than most of the Disney live-action remakes. And there are some good action sequences in it as well. Unfortunately, that's where my positives with the film end. The story felt convoluted and all over the place. I was also very disappointed with the directing, since it came up as being nothing more than a muddled mess. Not to mention the screenplay was terrible, especially with it having sloppy characterization, since you don't care about any of the characters in the film, as well as bland dialogue. The acting, it's not good, like, at all. Jared Leto was so lifeless in this movie as Ares. Like, I understand he's supposed to play an AI in the film, but he's literally like this drill. Look at that. Look at that happening. Look at that happening. Oh no, what's happening over there? Like line up, dude. Line up. Somebody should have told him. Somebody making this movie should have told him to line up a bit. Evan Peters was terrible as a CEO, especially with how he overacts in the film. Like, I'm not kidding. By the way, like when I saw him overacting in this was literally my reaction. When I saw him overacting as a CEO, this was literally my reaction.
On the face of time,
here's my reaction to it.
On the face of time, in blood. I'm going to fund it. Overacting much, Evan? On the face of time, in blood.
That's what it felt like. It felt like he was overacting. Arturo Castro was so insufferable as Seth Flores, especially since his character is nothing more than a comic relief for the sake of it. And poor Greta Lee, Jodie Turner-Smith, and especially Jeff Bridges are all horribly wasted in this movie since they're not given that much to do. It's clumsily edited. The pacing was an uneven mess. It also has its share of cliches that you've seen in other films before, and the nostalgia in this movie. My fucking God. This is member berries to the 10th degree. Like, remember Dee from the original Tron? Remember Kevin Flynn? I remember. Seriously, Disney, it's 2025. Nobody is buying this shit anymore. That ship has sailed long ago. And the ending and the mid-credits scene, you could tell they were just there just to set up Tron Ares, which, oh, wait! Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hang on. Judging by the box office, judging by this. Hold on. Hold on a second. Yeah, judging by this.
Highly unlikely.
Not happening. Not happening. Nice try. Overall, yes, the film's visuals are impressive. What were you going to say?
Sorry, I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Overall, yes, the film's visuals are impressive, but not only is Tron Ares the worst film in the series, but it's also another dud for Disney, since I found this movie to be boring, underwhelmingly generic, soulless, and extremely forgettable. 3 out of 10, or a D+. I really dislike this one.
Next up, After the Hunt, and yeah, another Luca Guadagnino drama that just failed to connect with me. It's constantly directed and acted, and offers interesting themes about a sex scandal, but it does nothing new with it. The characters are nothing to write home about. Nothing really happens too well, especially in the first act. It's not a horrible movie, but one destined to be a case of failed Oscar bait, sealed mediocrity.
To me, look, I'm not going to be around the bush here. To me, this is the worst movie Luca Guadagnino has made so far. Even as someone that loved Call Me by Your Name, Bones and All, and Challengers, I was very disappointed with this one. After the Hunt was such a self-indulgent and inconsistent mess that thinks it's so smart at being a Woody Allen movie that covers topics involving sexual harassment and assault, as well as truth, reputation, generational divide, and the slippery nature of power dynamics, when in reality, it's not. And it becomes nothing more than a missed opportunity for everyone involved, as well as a complete waste of time. Now, to be fair, there are a couple good things in it. Julia Roberts was absolutely magnificent in this movie. What makes her so good as Alma is how raw and compelling her performance felt, especially when it came to her scenes where she yells. And because of that, this is one of Julia Roberts' finest performances she's given out in her career. Andrew Garfield, Io Adebiri, and Michael Stahlberg are also brilliant in the film as well. And the cinematography also has an excellent cinematography too. Unfortunately, that's where my pauses for the film end. The story was a convoluted mess. I was also shocked at how bad Luca Guadagnino's directing felt, especially since it came up as being nothing more than a muddled mess. Not to mention, Nora Garrett's screenplay was such an overwritten mess. Not just with how messy both the dialogue and the characterization felt, but even when it tries to explore its themes involving truth, reputation, generational divide, and the slippery nature of power dynamics, it falls short due to how undercooked those themes felt. The rest of the actors, including Chloe Savini, are all horribly wasted in this movie, especially since they're not given that much to do in the film. They're not given that much to do. I was also very disappointed in Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score, since its lighthearted and bouncy tone did not fit whatsoever. There were some editing choices that came up as being jarring and uneven. It's also 20 minutes too long, especially since there were a lot of scenes that drag on and on and on to the point where I was getting so bored watching this, and it does suffer through a lot of pacing issues as a result of this. The tone also felt uneven and inconsistent. And finally, the ending. This is hands down one of the most embarrassing endings I've ever seen. And one of the most embarrassing fourth wall breaks I've ever seen as well. Especially when the final shot of the film literally has Luca Guadagnino saying "cut" off screen after Alma pays for her coffee and leaves. Like, are you kidding me? We get it, Luca. It's a movie. You didn't need to have yourself saying cut in the final shot of the film. Like, we get it. Yeah, overall, I hated this movie. Despite Julia Roberts delivering one of her finest performances as Alma, After the Hunt is unfortunately Luca Guadagnino's worst movie he's made so far, since this was one of the most self-indulgent, convoluted, and inconsistent movies I've ever seen. And it's on my list as one of the worst films of 2025. I didn't like Suspiria nor Queer, but at least they're more well made compared to this piece of shit. 2 out of 10 or a D. I really hated this movie.
And speaking of disappointing movies by good directors, House of Dynamite.
House of Dynamite, yeah.
Ever since winning her Oscar for The Hurt Locker, Catherine Bigelow has successfully replicated her success with Zero Dark 30 and Detroit. And this one tries to do the same thing, but this time fell pretty flat. Direction isn't slumming, neither is the acting, but the story feels rather tried, which doesn't help matters that it cuts between 3 different scenarios centered around the exact same thing. The handheld cinematography looks more like an episode of The Office than a political thriller, and Volker Bertelmann's score sounds like a watered-down version of his Conclave score from last year, and the ending was abrupt as fuck. Overall, it seems like Catherine Street has officially come to an end, so seal mediocrity.
Yeah, I really did not like this. I wasn't a fan of this film either. It is well directed by Catherine Bigelow. The acting, especially from Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson, Gabriel Basso, Jared Harris, Tracy Letts, Anthony Ramos, Jason Clarke, and Greta Lee, although not in it that much, was terrific. I actually did like the musical score and cinematography, and there are some real tension-filled moments in both the first and second acts of the film. Unfortunately, I was disappointed with how House of Dynamite turned out. The story, unfortunately, didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would, especially due to how repetitive its non-chronological structure felt, with the same events being played out only with different characters and their perspectives. I don't have a problem with movies doing that, but it's how the movie used it in a repetitive manner that really rubbed me the wrong way. I was also disappointed in Noah Oppenheim's screenplay, since not only were there unutilized and underdeveloped characters, but it also tries to say something involving what would you do if today was the last day of your life? And hold on, I'm sorry. I forgot to write the themes. Anyway, it tries to explore like its themes involving like power and violence, but unfortunately, it just didn't work due to how underdeveloped they felt. Some of the editing choices found uneven. The pacing was too breakneck, and the ending, like, dear Lord. I'm not kidding when I say that this is one of the most abrupt endings I've seen in recent memory. I thought the Roses ending felt abrupt. Holy shit, was I dead wrong on that. No joke. When it ended, I literally went, that's it? Really? Like, this is one of those endings where it just basically stops as it gets to something gripping or exciting. I really hate it when movies sometimes do this. Overall, while the film is well acted and has some memorable moments and intriguing moments here and there, I'm sorry to say that I found A House of Dynamite to be Catherine Bigelow's weakest movie since The Weight of Water, due to it coming across as being nothing more than an uneven and repetitive mess. And given that it has a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes and also a 75 on Metacritic, it's up there with Spike Lee's highest to lowest as being the most overrated movie I've seen this entire year. Not a terrible movie, but not something I'll see myself watching again. 5 out of 10. Or C+. really disappointing.
Next, we have Kiss of the Spider-Woman 2025, and I wasn't that into the original film from 1985, so I was hoping Bill Condon would approve on it when making this reboot. Turns out the problems I had with that original film have been doubled down here. The main problem I had is that it goes through the exact same formula for the bulk of the movie. Andor is having trouble getting used to his queer cellmate who fantasizes about J-Lo as a musical actress, while occasionally reminding us of the terrible politics of 80s Argentina. Lather-rinse repeat. Tone I felt to be all over the place. Like, does it want to be a musical, a transgender drama, a political thriller? And the ending especially was extremely rushed, more so than the original. I guess I'd rather watch this one because J-Lo's musical numbers are at least entertaining, but the final result ended up being a less offensive Amelia Perez, but still not good. I only recommend this to hardcore theater kids and fans of the original film, but otherwise still mediocrity.
I liked it, but I preferred the original more. It is well directed. The acting was terrific. Jennifer Lopez gives out one of her best performances yet, and Diego Luna and Tona the actor that played him, Luis Molina. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced that, but they were terrific. They were fantastic, and the chemistry between those two was brilliant. I was also surprised with how good the soundtrack was, especially with how good the songs are in this. It's got fantastic cinematography. The production values and the production design and costume design in Kiss of the Spider-Woman are both spectacular and are without a doubt some of the best I've seen this entire year. There are some real tension-filled moments throughout, especially in the third act. And the way it ended, I'm sorry, Søren, but I actually liked the ending. I actually found the ending to be satisfying. Now, with that being said, the story did admittedly feel uneven at times. And while Bill Condon did a great job with the way he directed the film, I did think his screenplay could have used some improvement, especially with the way it was trying to explore its themes involving escapism, love, dignity, and humanity, since they did feel underdeveloped. There are some pacing issues in the middle and some uneven editing choices and some jarring and uneven editing choices. But overall, it's a good film. Not great, but good. While it's not quite one of the best movie musicals I've ever seen, I nevertheless found Kiss of the Spider-Woman to be a solid, entertaining, and faithful adaptation of the musical it's based on. So, featuring wonderful performances by the three main leads. So, 7 out of 10, or B. Not great. I'm not crazy about it. And I still prefer the original more, but it's a solid film.
Next, we have Roofman, and Derek Cianfrance's return to the screen sees Channing Tatum as a robber who hangs out in Toys R Us. The cast is funny and charismatic from the likes of Channing, Peter Dinklage, and Kirsten Dunst. It's personally paced with a solid soundtrack, and it's got a great balance between humor and heart throughout. So if you're a fan of these actors and filmmakers, this is definitely for you. So see cinema.
I love this movie. Not only was Roofman a nice return to form for Derek Cianfrance, but this is one of the most highly entertaining and riveting films I've seen this entire year. Why? Because I was invested in the story due to how highly engaging it felt, and the fact that it was also based on a true story was another reason why the story worked for me. It's well directed by Derek Cianfrance. He did an incredible job guiding us through Jeffrey Manchester's life while showing us the bad decisions he made as a robber. The screenplay that he and Kurt Gunn wrote for the film was excellent, especially with how sharp and well-written the dialogue felt and how it successfully balances its comedic and dramatic tones so well. The acting was terrific. Channing Tatum gives out what I feel is his best performance since Foxcatcher. Sorry. Let me rephrase that. Channing Tatum gives out what I feel is his best performance since Foxcatcher. What makes his performance as Jeffrey Manchester so good is the way Tatum actually brought a lot of energy, charisma, and likability to his character while also making you aware that Manchester is a bad guy for making a lot of wrong decisions. Kirsten Dunst was also wonderful in this movie as Lee Wayne Scott, and the chemistry that she and Tatum had in the film was brilliant. Lakeith Stanfield, Juno Temple, Peter Dinklage, Ben Mendelsohn, and Emery Cohen are also excellent in the film as well. It's got a great soundtrack, excellent cinematography. The editing was very good. It's deliberately paced throughout. And when it came to the film's humor, to the film's humor, it works because of how quirky and witty it felt. And without spoiling what happens, it also has one of my favorite endings I've seen this entire year. Now, if I had a couple gripes with the film, it would be that they could have shaved like 10 minutes of it down, since there were some scenes that did admittedly drag in some parts, and there were a couple of supporting characters that admittedly did feel underutilized, but that's it. Overall, Roofman features Channing Tatum giving out one of his very best performances, and it is one of the most highly entertaining and riveting films I've seen this year. And it's on my list for one of my favorite films of the year too. 9.5 out of 10 or an A. I really, really love this film. And now we have and now my next movie I'm going to talk about is Black Phone 2, which is a sequel to the first Black Phone film, which I looking back, it should have been on my best of 2022 list. I really, really love that film. Anyway, in Black Phone 2, bad dreams haunt 15-year-old Gwen as she receives calls from the Black Phone and sees disturbing visions of 3 boys being stalked at a winter camp. Accompanied by her brother Finn, they head to the camp to resolve the mystery, only to confront the Grabber, a killer who's grown even more powerful in depth. I still prefer the first film more, but while I don't think it's as good as the first film, I overall did enjoy the Black Phone 2. It's well directed. It's very well directed by Scott Derrickson. The acting was terrific. Mason Thames is once again great in this as Finney. But the one performer that surprised me the most was Madeline McGraw. She was fantastic as Gwen, and that's due to how riveting and natural her performance felt. And although he's not in the film that much, Ethan Hawke was nevertheless brilliant as the Grabber. The score was brilliant. The cinematography was fantastic, especially with how they incorporated the 16mm cameras for dream sequences. It's got excellent sound design. This movie also delivers some real tension and eerie atmosphere that had me on the edge of my seat throughout. And when I say this movie is gory, that is the biggest understatement I could ever make, especially with how grotesque, yet fantastic the practical effects looked in this. Now, with that being said, here's why I don't think Black Phone is better than the first. I unfortunately found the story to be a downgrade compared to the first due to how uneven and all over the place it felt. And while Scott Derrickson does a brilliant job with the way he directed the film, I was admittedly a little disappointed with in the screenplay that he and Robert Cargill wrote for the film, especially since not only were there some supporting characters, including the mom character, that felt underutilized, but the dialogue was such a clunky mess as well. Some of the editing choices made in the film also felt uneven. Excuse me. It's also 10 minutes too long, especially since there were some scenes that did drag on, and it suffers through some pacing issues as a result of this. There are some cliches it presents that you've seen in other horror films before. I mean, let's face it, if you've seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, you know exactly who the killer is supposed to be a resemblance of. Let's be real here. Overall, despite it unfortunately being a downgrade compared to the first movie due to the cliches the film presents, as well as its uneven and bloated story, I nevertheless found Black Phone 2 to be a solid, intriguing, and chilling sequel that fans of the first Black Phone movie will enjoy just as much as I did. 7 out of 10 or a B. It's a solid sequel. Not great, but solid. And now my next film is Good Fortune. Good Fortune, directed by and starring Aziz Ansari. What is Good Fortune about, you might ask? Well, I will tell you. Good Fortune tells the story of a well-meaning but inept angel named Gabriel, played by Keanu Reeves, who meddles in the lives of a struggling gig worker and a wealthy venture capitalist. Now, I was interested in seeing Good Fortune when I saw the trailer for this, especially given that Keanu Reeves was playing an angel, as well as the film as well as the film's premise being an interesting riff on Trading Places and Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life. And after finally seeing Good Fortune, here's what I'll say about this movie. For his first time directing a movie, I thought Aziz Ansari did a solid job with the way he directs the actors as well as himself in the film. The acting was very good. Keanu Reeves gives out one of his finest performances yet as Gabriel, and he also had a lot of funny. Excuse me. He also had a lot of funny moments in it too. Especially this one running gag involving chicken nuggies. That was pretty funny. Seth Rogen was excellent as Jeff, and Aziz Ansari, although I have some problems with his character, and Kiki Palmer are also good in the film as well. It's got a good soundtrack, great cinematography, and I did laugh at 40% of the jokes, including this one running gag, as I stated before, involving chicken nuggies.
Chicken McNuggies.
Unfortunately, the film wasn't as funny as it was trying to make it out to be. The story didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would, due to it feeling underwhelmingly contrived. And while Aziz Ansari did a solid job with the way he directed as well as acting in the film, I unfortunately cannot say the same thing about for the screenplay he wrote for the film, and that's mainly due to how not only how clunky its dialogue felt, and most of the characters feeling underdeveloped, but its social commentary on capitalism and wealth felt undercooked. And worst of all, Aziz Ansari's character is such a fucking dickbag, especially what he does with Seth Rogen's character's credit card by using it to buy him and his date dinner early on in the film. And it actually made me feel bad for Seth Rogen's character throughout. The message felt cliched. It's got some awkward editing choices, tedious pacing, and as for the other 60% of the jokes, 60% of the jokes, they fell very flat. Overall, while the film features another brilliant performance by Keanu Reeves and has some funny and entertaining moments here and there, Good Fortune tries too hard to be a riff on Trading Places mixed with It's a Wonderful Life, and doesn't say all that much with its social commentary on capitalism and wealth that by the end, it's one of those comedies I found to be tepid and underwhelming. I was ready to laugh, yet left feeling disappointed. 5 out of 10 or a C+.
Actually, a Ballad of a Small Player, and after impressing me before with All Quiet on the Western Front and Conclave, Edward Berger has unfortunately let me down. Colin Farrell is a standout, and the cinematography is beautiful, and there are some amusing moments here and there. However, this is a weird criticism, but it seems rather over-directed. Like, something about this movie seems like it's trying to say way more than it really is. The music especially is way too bombastic for a movie like this. Then the story is nothing extraordinary, and the side characters are all underdeveloped. Overall, this somehow feels both underwhelming and overwhelming at the same time. Not terrible, just a bit much. Seal mediocre.
To me, this is one of the most disappointing films I've seen this year. Ballad of a Small Player is such a meandering and convoluted mess that doesn't say all that much involving the dangers of gambling and addiction, and it becomes nothing more than a missed opportunity for everyone involved. Yes, the acting was great, especially from Colin Farrell, who delivers such a powerful performance in the film, and Tilda Swinton, Deanie Ip, and Alex Jennings are all very good in the film as well. And it's got a brilliant musical score, fantastic cinematography, and visuals. But the story was like a tried mess. I was also very disappointed in the way Edward Berger directed the film, since it came out as being both shockingly over-directed and messy. I also found the screenplay to be an overwritten mess, especially since even when it's trying to say something by exploring its themes involving gambling, addiction, materialism, greed, and redemption, it falls short due to how either undercooked or underdeveloped those themes felt. It's clumsily edited. The pacing was all over the place. The tension felt non-existent. It has its share of cliches that you've seen in other films before, and the ending felt so underwhelming. And the twist they threw in the film felt so weak. I have to spoil this twist because it made no sense whatsoever. So, hold on. Hold on a second. All right, there we go. All right, so the twist in the film is basically Lord Doyle found out that Dao Ming had probably died a long time ago, and he was hallucinating about her for a while. Like, what? Like, you mean to tell me this time that he was actually hallucinating about her? That just makes the whole thing pointless. Yeah. Oh. I get what they were trying to do with this, but it felt poorly executed. Overall, despite a compelling performance by Colin Farrell, Ballad of a Small Player is unfortunately Edward Berger's weakest movie he's made so far, and one of the most disappointing films I've seen this entire year, since this was nothing more than a convoluted and meandering mess. 3 out of 10 or a D+. Better luck next time, Edward Berger. And, you know, I hate to say this, but after we do like 3 more reviews, I gotta wrap this up really quick because I gotta be at work in about an hour. So I only have time for 3 more movie reviews, and then we gotta wrap this up. Anyway, next movie is If I Had Blades, I'd Kick You. This stars Rose Byrne, and it stars Rose Byrne, and who plays Linda, who, with her life crashing down around her, tries to investigate her daughter's mysterious illness, her absent husband, a missing person, and an increasingly hostile relationship with her therapist. Despite hearing about this earlier this year when it premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, where it ended up being one of the best films reviewed at that film festival, I didn't know what to expect going into If I Had Blades, I'd Kick You, other than Rose Byrne being in it and Josh Safdie being one of the producers of the film and A24 distributing it. And let me tell you, not knowing much about If I Had Blades, I'd Kick You made this not only one of the most surprising films I've seen this entire year, but one of the best movies I've seen this entire year as well. It's not hard to see why Josh Safdie was one of the producers of this movie. If I Had Blades, I'd Kick You was such a compelling, mesmerizing, and poignant portrait and gripping portrait on the struggles of motherhood that not only had me invested throughout, but also floored me, especially with how writer-director Mary Bronstein shows us the anxiety-filled stress Rose Byrne's character goes through as a struggling therapist and mother trying to care for her daughter, who is suffering from a pediatric feeding disorder, while also trying to get the back bedroom ceiling of the apartment fixed after it has a big hole in it. This is one of those movies where that really stayed with me and had me thinking about for quite some time as soon as it was over. The story felt well structured and gripping. It's very well directed by Mary Bronstein, and her screenplay was nothing short of just brilliant. And that's not only thanks to how well written the dialogue felt and how real and fleshed out the characters felt, but how it had but how it also says a lot when it came to exploring its main theme involving the difficulties of motherhood. The acting was terrific. Rose Byrne gives out what is quite possibly her best performance as Linda, mainly due to how raw, powerful, and compelling it felt. She deserves the Best Actress nomination at next year's Oscars. It might or might not happen, but I'm telling you, she's that great. A$AP Rocky also delivers such an excellent performance as James, while Conan O'Brien, Daniel McDonald, and Christian Slater, although not in it that much, are all great in the film as well. It's got excellent cinematography, brilliant editing. It's deliberately paced throughout. And when it comes to attention the film displays, it works because of how it shows the amount of stress and anxiety Rose Byrne's character goes through as a struggling mother and therapist. I was also very surprised and impressed at some of the dark comedy moments that the film throws into the midst. Without spoiling what happens, let's just say this is one scene involving a hamster that made me laugh so hard. I'm not going to say what happens to it, but once you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if there were words to describe the cosmic visuals the film throws in, it would be hypnotic and mesmerizing. And on top of that, it also has one of my favorite endings I've seen this entire year. Yeah, overall, I loved this movie very much. Overall, I love this movie. If I had Blades, I'd kick you. It features Rose Byrne delivering one of the year's most riveting performances as Linda, and this is one of the most compelling, gripping, and mesmerizing films I've seen this entire year. And this is hands down one of the year's best films. And without a doubt, it's getting a 10 out of 10 or an A+, baby. After seeing this movie, I can't wait to see what Mary Bronstein does next. Mary Bronstein, bring on your next film, please.
Yeah. Next up, I have The Twits, and I'll just say it, I hate this movie more than humanly possible. This movie fails at every possible level you can think of and amps its awfulness out to 11. And I'm not going to explain why. I have my own in-depth analysis video on my own channel on why it's one of the most reprehensible and abominable movies I've seen in a long time. So just watch that video, see your rage. Moving on. Now we get to now we end with my best film of the year. It Was Just an Accident. And this year's Palme d'Or winner sees a kidnapping and around jumpstarting a series of hijinks. And it's one of the tightest thrills I've seen in a long time. It's very well directed by Jafar Ben-Nahi with the cinematography and editing. And the brilliant screenplay explores ethical themes around Iranian politics and revenge, kept me on my toes and kept me guessing throughout its runtime. So seek out one of the most suspenseful and thought-provoking thrillers in a long time, Seal Cinema.
I saw this at the Chicago Film Festival when it opened, and it was the best movie I saw at that film festival. This was a gripping and powerful and riveting film that is also one of the year's best films. It's well directed by Jafar Ben-Nahi. The story felt gripping and engaging. The acting was terrific. And Jafar's screenplay was absolutely magnificent, especially since it had a lot to say with its themes involving authority. It had a lot to say involving like authoritarianism, memory, trauma, revenge, and the impossible task of staying human. The cinematography was fantastic. It's very well edited, very well paced. It's got some great dark comedy moments in it, and there were some tension, suspenseful moment. There were some moments of tension and suspense that had me on the edge of my seat throughout. And it also has one of the best endings I've seen this entire year. Overall, It Was Just an Accident is hands down one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. It's a brilliant critique on authoritarianism, and it's also one of the most gripping and riveting films I've seen this entire year. Yeah, you already know what it's going to get. 10 out of 10, baby, or an A+. Well done, Jafar. All right, we're gonna get down to our last movie review since we'll cover the October 24th and October 31st reviews on next week on the next podcast. But for right now, let's just get to our last review and just call it a night, call it an evening, since I got to get to work soon. Anyway, our last movie we're going to talk about on tonight's podcast is Blue Moon by Richard Linklater.
I was actually going to have it with the double feature with the Nouveau Vague, but oh well, I guess. This one sees Richard Linklater see a guy one night with a guy in a bar, and it features solid performances from especially Ethan Hawke, who really reminded me of Andre Gregory in Month Dinner with Andre. My only nitpick is that it had some pacing issues here and there, but it's proof of Richard Linklater's talent, being an example of seeing so much with solo production, so seal of approval.
To me, this is one of Richard Linklater's best movies. Not only does Blue Moon succeed as a biographical film involving Lorenz Hart, a former colleague of Richard Rodgers, reflecting on himself on the opening night of Oklahoma, as well as going to My Dinner with Andre approach by having it be a stage talking film set in a bar throughout most of the picture, but it's also a melancholic yet poignant and thought-provoking portrait on loneliness and the importance of love and beauty that really moved me from beginning to end. And it shows why that Richard Linklater has still got it as a filmmaker. The story felt poignant and highly engaging. Richard Linklater's directing was brilliant, especially with the way he directed the actors in the film, which was nothing short of astonishing. And the screenplay Robert Kaplow wrote for the film was absolutely terrific, especially with not only how witty and well-written the dialogue felt, but how it also does a brilliant job meshing its comedic and dramatic tones together while also having a lot to say when it came to its themes involving loneliness, ambition, and the importance of love and beauty. The acting was fantastic. Ethan Hawke absolutely delivers one of his finest performances yet as Lorenz Hart, and that's thanks to the amount of energy and charisma he brings to his character. Although Lorenz Hart was definitely a real person. He needs to be nominated for Best Actor at next year's Oscars. He is that great. Margaret Qualley, Bobby Cannavale, and Andrew Scott are all brilliant in the film too. It's got a great soundtrack, excellent cinematography, very good editing. It's very well paced throughout. It's got brilliant production and costume design. And when it came to the film's humor, it works because of how dry and sharp it felt. And it has one of the most satisfying endings I've seen this entire year. Overall, I loved Blue Moon. Blue Moon features Ethan Hawke giving out one of the year's best performances as Lorenz Hart. And not only is the film this generation's My Dinner with Andre, but it's also one of Richard Linklater's most poignant, thought-provoking, and deeply moving films he's made in quite some time. And it's also one of the year's best films. Like If I Had Legs to Kick You and it was just an accident, it's also getting a 10 out of 10 or an A+. Third time I had to do it. Go see Blue Moon as soon as you can, and go see If I Had Legs to Kick You as well as Roofman and It Was Just an Accident as soon as you can. All terrific films. Anyway, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry I have to cut this short, but I do have to go to work soon, so we're gonna have to end our podcast here for tonight. But thank you guys very much for joining me on tonight's podcast. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun being on this podcast, and so did Søren. Be sure to subscribe to Søren the FilmBrony on his YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. Give him the love he absolutely deserves. He's a really talented person, and also check out his Popcorn Panel podcast. He's in too. The link is also in the description below. And until we meet again next Wednesday for the FilmBrony, and until we meet again either Tuesday or Wednesday for the FilmBrony podcast episode 65.
Well, I'm gonna probably Wednesday because I have the Popcorn Panel on Tuesday.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. And until we meet again for episode 65 next Wednesday, I'm gonna end it like I usually end it. Thanks for watching tonight's podcast, and we will see you all again next time. So long. So long for now.